Arjun, so this is session number 12, chapter number 11, and it's called Viśvarūpadarśana Yoga. Vishva means universal or cosmic, and Rupa means the form, Darshana means the vision of. So the yoga of universal vision, or the vision of the divine cosmic form. So what we are going to talk about in this session, these are the themes in chapter number 11. So first of all, of course, we are going to look at what we have covered so far, the logic, the flow of the thought so far, and a recap. And then the first 4 verses actually are Arjuna's prayer to see the universal divine form. And he makes a request to Bhagwan, and Bhagwan grants him that wish with the gift of the eye of wisdom. So we will see the significance of what this means in terms of our own sadhana. And then Sanjay takes over the commentary for a little bit and gives a commentary of the vision itself, which is being seen by Arjun. And this is also to indicate to us that Dhritarashtra is listening to this, and Sanjay is giving this commentary to him. And therefore, he is also in an indirect, very indirect way, because he himself is blind, is having this vision spoken of by Sanjay himself. Then there is a long kind of section about Arjuna's experience and description of the vision itself. And this is very interesting. And it follows on from chapter number 10 as to what is the connection between chapter number 10 and 11. This is what is being shown in this particular section. And this we'll also talk about to see what it really means. And then Bhagwan gives his own response in terms of what Arjuna has described and experienced. And he says how to have darshan of the Viśvarūpa. So he also gives us guidance as that if we want to see this ourselves, then what do we need to do in our own lives in order to get this Viśvarūpadarshan? So very interesting chapter. And as we know that, this follows on from what we have been talking about so far. And then right at the end, we will kind of talk about what you need to do in terms of living the message of the Gita, living through the Gita. What are the practical points we can pick up from this particular chapter and what can we practice? Okay, so let's start with the logic and flow of the thought so far and a brief recap. So you remember that the first 6 chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, according to Shankaracharya ji and the Advaita Vedanta tradition, is that the first 6 chapter give an idea about the human condition and the solution to suffering. And we saw how in chapter number 1 and the beginning of chapter number 2, Arjuna is giving his own kind of view about what he is experiencing in the middle of the battlefield. And how in this distressed condition, he approaches Bhagwan and says, look, I'm confused. What should I do? Decisively tell me what I should be doing right now. And Bhagwan, of course, begins his wonderful discourse. And right up to the end of chapter number 18, he takes Arjuna step by step into understanding really what he needs to do in order to get from this dejected condition in which he is to the one of action. From dejection to action. This is the whole pathway. This is the whole journey which is being undertaken through the guidance of Bhagwan. And then Bhagwan's response is really the overall teaching, which is talking about Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, which are the 2 main kind of highways of this spiritual pathway. And the outcome of that, which is the person of perfection who is established in the knowledge. Sthita Prajna. Who is a Sthita Prajna? And how does he arrive at this point whereby he begins to go into this kind of journey which is taking place and reaches a place where he gets completely established in this wonderful highest knowledge. And the starting point of the journey, of course, as we have seen, is Karma Yoga. And here in this chapter, Bhagwan describes the nature of action, sacrifice, the spirit of sacrifice, yajna spirit, and how that can be the basis on which we can live our life in this transactional world, and to shape our thoughts and our feelings and our actions according to the framework of the technique which he gives to Arjun, and how we can, through this process, purify the mind of the me and the mind. And stepping one step from there in terms of development of the spiritual process, there is the renunciation of action in knowledge. Now here, what begins to happen is Bhakti Yoga, Saguna Upasana, and Jnana Yoga, Nirguna Dhyanam, begins to be introduced into this whole pathway, whereby Karma Yoga then is also including how the renunciation of action itself can take place by means of knowledge. And then in chapter number 5, the true renunciation. What does it mean to be a Brahmanishta? And what is the nature of Jnananishta? Who is the Jnani? Who is the one who is the realized person, the Atmavit? All this is given in terms of the true renunciation. And the person who is ready for true renunciation, he can have a kind of bypass. He can go straight into the kind of practices which are related to knowledge, contemplation, and meditation, which then introduces the next chapter, which is chapter number 6 on Dhyana Yoga. So Karma Yogi, Sannyasi, Jnani, the technique of meditation, all this become part and parcel of a steady development of our spiritual pathway. And through that, we reach the highest state of self-absorption in which we can experience this reality which Bhagwan is taking Arjuna through. And now the next 6 chapters, which we have been looking steadily at, is the knowledge of the divine. So whereas the first one was about Jiva, the next 6 chapters are about Ishvara. And knowing the divine, both in the manifest form and in the unmanifest, changeless one reality. So Bhagavad Gita is giving us both ways in which we can connect with the divine in such a way that the divine is ever present in our lives. So he starts off in chapter number 7 by switching the channel from the Jiva description and his guidance to the Jiva to now focusing on the divine and how to have full knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, Jnana and Vijnana. So Jnana and Vijnana are really two very much related concepts, which then begin to tell us about the knowledge and the experience of the knowledge, the experiential knowledge and the intellectual knowledge, and how they are connected together. And to have the full knowledge, we need both. We need the Jnana as well as the Vijnana. And then in chapter number 8, in answer to Arjuna's question about various different aspects of Bhagwan, what he was talking at the end of chapter number 7, showing a path to Brahman by remembering the imperishable at the time of death. So although we may not attain Jivan Mukti or the realization of the truth in a lifetime, what we can do is that we can, through our focus on the spiritual knowledge and the spiritual kind of contemplation and meditation, at the time of death, we can still attain mukti. So this is the krama mukti, or the gradual liberation, which can take place even right at the end of the day. There is a pathway which we can follow in order to attain the liberation. Then the next one is Raja Vidya Rajagurya. So this is the supreme knowledge. This is the most secret knowledge which then Arjuna is given to, and the pathways to liberation, which we have seen in a lot of detail. The yoga of divine glories. Now here Bhagwan tells Arjun, okay, you are looking for the divine, and it is there right in front of you. How are you going to see it? Here is how you can see it. So Bhagwan gives many different categories of how to connect with the divine here and now. It's not about going to a specific place or going to have a space whereby we can experience the divine, but in each and everything, divine is available. And how to have these vibhutis and how they can be perceived in such a way that it can give us the continuous awareness of the divine in this kind of manner. And then this chapter, which gives the all-encompassing vision of the divine made visible to Arjun. So you can see it's a very systematic way in which the Bhagavad Gita guides us. And to me, this is the most wonderful manual of spirituality, a manual of life and living, how to live our transactional life, and the wonderful way in which Lord Krishna takes Arjuna step by step into experiencing the highest reality. So then what we are going to talk about today is chapter number 11, the universal vision. Now, before we do that, let's try to connect what we talked about in chapter number 10. So these are Bhagwan's vibhutis, and this was Vibhuti Yoga, and knowing the divine in the phenomenal world. So what are the principles behind this? So it is important to understand, when we read the Bhagavad Gita, we read verse by verse, and sometimes, the kind of process which is going on, or the kind of framework within which Lord Krishna is describing this, it's important to understand that, so that we can begin to fit each and every verse into this framework of thinking. So here we are looking at divine glories. What is the principle? What is the purpose? And what is the process? So like we have seen in chapter number 10, Bhagwan gives so many different categories of thought so that we can maintain a continuous awareness of the divine. And remember, this continuous awareness of the divine is for what purpose? It is really the inner purification which needs to take place. And that inner purification will only come if we are making that effort, we are doing our purusharth, we are doing our sadhana in the way in which it is being prescribed to us in the Bhagavad Gita. And this very important idea that we can have this continuous awareness of the divine throughout the day. This is important to understand in this particular chapter. And for this purpose, Bhagwan Shri Krishna gives Arjuna these categories of thought. 72 vibhutis are given that are otherwise endless. Bhagwan says this is only a tip of my finger, which you can see here. The rest is hidden away in the universes which are there, which are not available. But as far as you are concerned, Arjuna, what you are perceiving and what you and me are perceiving in this world, we can categorize these entities which we see before us. And these are the 72 vibhutis Bhagwan gives examples of, which are otherwise endless. And he says, look at this and you can see me there. Look at this and you can see me there. And he gives all these examples. And the important point here really is that bringing this into the moment here and now creates bhakti. It creates this emotion of devotion in ourselves while we are moving from moment to moment. It increases our faith, because as we begin to connect the divine, this is the faith which is acknowledging and validating that particular faith. So it increases the faith which we are having by this continuous awareness of the divine and enthusiasm on the journey. It gives us this motivation to keep on going and saying, yes, I can see the divine, and I feel this enormous devotion in my heart, which begins to flow into each and every experience as I go from moment to moment. So in chapter number 7 and 8, what Bhagwan was giving is Brahma Upasana. And here, remember, there is a relationship between the purification of the mind and how the divine is going to be experienced. And if the purification is not there, we are not going to be able to see this oneness anywhere. So therefore, it means that we have to have this upasana regularly, sincerely, this abhyas which needs to take place in order for these vasanas to be sublimated and eliminated if possible. And only then, when the mind becomes purified, remember the 6 things which happen when the mind gets purified? The mind becomes sattvic. In other words, that it is able to be calm, it is able to be contented, and it is even-minded. 3 things. Secondly, it is able to retain a certain level of single-pointedness, that concentration begins to come about. Not only concentration, but we can get the stillness of the mind. Stillness of the mind together with a subtleness of the mind, we can then begin to see this oneness all around us. And if there's not enough purification, we still have to make that effort. And so here's the sequence again. The I awareness, which is very subtle and very difficult to get hold of. This is for the Uttam Adhikari, whereby purification has taken place to such an extent that he is able to have this oneness of vision. And then for the Madhyam Adhikari, Om, through the sound Om, that contemplation and meditation can take place. And for somebody who has just stepped onto the path, the name and the form become important ways of doing the upasana. So nothing is left out. See, this is the wonderful thing about Bhagwan and this guidance in the Bhagavad Gita. He takes each and every part of the journey, each and every type of person, each and every type of devotee, and says, here's your prescription. This is what you need to do. Just like if you go to the doctor, the diagnosis is this, here's your prescription. So also Bhagwan gives prescription to each and every person who comes to their spiritual path. And here the whole idea is what? The idea is we take support of the name and the form to connect with the divine. So when I go to the temple, I see the murti in front of me, I see the name and the form. The name begins to create a certain devotional energy within myself. And I say to myself, yes, I can feel the divine right here, right now. From there, we have to go to the I awareness. This I awareness, which is the threshold and the doorway towards the complete experience of that ultimate reality. So put it another way, from the this thought is about the thought of the world, to the I thought, which is the innermost thought, which is the most innermost and the subtlest kind of experience you can have. And that becomes the basis of our meditation. So again, a very systematic way in which we can begin to look at the knowledge which is given to us and follow what Bhagwan is teaching Arjuna, guiding him towards the highest realization of the self. So here we are, again, just to remind ourselves, this is the broad scheme of the Bhagavad Gita. Through knowledge, through devotion, through action, and through practice, one can attain this inner transformation, going from a tamasic and a rajasic personality to a very developed and a pure sattvic personality. And in terms of what Bhagavad Gita is teaching us, from a state of suffering, just like Arjuna was in a state of dejection, a state of despair, grief was in his heart. From suffering to sattvification, inner purity, through karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and then ultimately jnana yoga, to self-realization. This is the overall schematic of the Bhagavad Gita. Just to remind ourselves, and intellectual knowledge can only take us so far. The intellect needs to guide action with knowledge to lead to this inner transformation, this inner change through experience in the moment. The main thing to note here is that it is very much about experiential learning. And as much as we can have experience in the moment, the presence of the divine, which how these last 2 chapters are going to tell us, is really the presence of divine in the moment and how we can get that experience here and now. So this is living through the Gita, experiencing the divine in the moment, moment by moment, and through the mind, through the heart, through our action. And as much as we can bring this knowledge and experience into our moment-to-moment transactional world, so we are living through the Gita and the message and the guidance of the Gita. Okay, so again, to remind ourselves, this is the overall kind of guidance. The problem is jiva vishada, because we are always confronted with shoka, moha, and bhaya, grief, delusion, and fear. And the solution is what? Solution is jiva sadhana, liberation. And here Bhagwan gives a complete kind of framework within which we can have this sadhana ongoing all the time, karma yoga, karma sannyas, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and then ultimately liberation. And the first two phases are really about saguna bhakti, and then the final ones where we have attained a certain level of purification, we can then go towards the dhyana yoga and contemplation and meditation. This is steady renunciation of the fruit of the action and action itself. And this means disidentification from the enjoying the result of my action and even the sense that I'm doing this action. And we'll see in this chapter, Bhagwan tells Arjuna, you are just an instrument. Just like you and me, we are the instruments. So absorption in self in meditation is really then the final gateway through which we can experience this ultimate reality. So again, a good way of kind of looking at the journey, where we are, what we need to do, what is the prescription for our journey at this moment. Bhagwan is leaving no stone unturned so that we all know where to go, what to do. Again, this spiritual journey is slightly in a different way in terms of the identity of the seeker, whereby we start being a karmi, so that we are not even stepped onto the spiritual pathway, and we are saying to ourselves, I'm the doer, I'm the enjoyer. From there, we step onto the spiritual pathway and we begin to become abhokta, which means I give up this sense of enjoyership, which means letting go of the fruit of the action, detachment from the result of the action. So I become abhokta. I'm still the karta, but I become a karta in a different way according to the guidance of the Gita. Then karma sannyasa, whereby I begin to lose this sense of me and mine, and also this sense of enjoyership and doers. So I become a kind of karma sannyasi. And then jnana yogi, whereby more and more of this akarta abhokta bhava is beginning to develop, because my knowledge is becoming established in such a way that I begin to have this very much a sense of everything is going on. I'm doing nothing, right? This I am doing nothing is akarta abhokta bhava. And then we get completely established in it through realization. We become established in the knowledge, we become jnana nishta, and we become atmavit. So again, another way of thinking about the journey which we have been looking at, and to see that saguna bhakti and nirguna bhakti is also very much part and parcel of this journey. Why I'm emphasizing this again and again is because we need to have a clear picture of this journey in our mind. Just like if you want to go somewhere, you need to have a direction. Of course, nowadays we have got the GPS and we don't even have to think about where it's going, okay? But in this case, what we need to do is the guidance of the Guru. That is our Guru positioning system, okay? And Guru is positioning us in such a way that we begin to go towards the ultimate destination of our human life. Okay, so again, the nature of God, which was given in 7477, Ishvara Swarupam, which is related to what we are going to talk about. Apara Prakriti, lower nature, Saguna Upasana, related to the name and the form with attributes of the divine. And then Paraprakriti, which is the Nirguna Dhyanam, which is a Dhyanam without any kind of attributes, Nirguna Tattvam, and without modification, Nirvikara Tattvam. This is the way in which we see the divine. And this unmanifest transcendental divine is where we have to get to ultimately. But in order to do that, we need to pass through the lower nature with our Saguna Upasana, so that the purification of the mind can bring us to a stage whereby Nirguna Dhyanam becomes possible for us. So we will now go on to the next section. And this is about Arjuna's prayer to see the universal divine form. So remember that in the last chapter, Bhagwan told him that this is only a bit of my yoga and my power. So Arjuna is saying, by this word of the highest secret concerning yourself, which you have spoken out of compassion towards me, my delusion is gone. So when we talk about delusion is gone, which means I can see clearly now. Why? Because what I was thinking was a reality is no longer there, and this is the reality which I am seeing now as real, and therefore my delusion is gone. Of course, in the not delusion gone in the ultimate sense, whereby he has got the experience of the ultimate reality, whereby delusion is gone completely. Once and for all, it is gone completely. But what is happening here is that Arjuna is saying, now my delusion that, the divine is not available to me here, or that I cannot see the divine in any kind of way, that the truth about what you're telling me, and the truth about the ultimate reality, the Nirguna Brahman, and the truth about the Saguna Brahman has actually been accepted by me, and therefore my delusion is gone. So the first step of removing delusion is to have clarity and comprehension of knowledge. With that comes conviction. And with the conviction comes commitment. These are the 4 C's again. So in this case, Arjuna is saying, yes, my conviction is now steady, it is established, and my delusion is gone. So then he says, okay, the origin and destruction of being verily have been heard by me in detail from you. So Bhagwan has given a lot of detail about what the divine is in manifest, unmanifest form. And he says, your inexhaustible greatness. He's beginning to have this sense that Bhagwan's inexhaustible greatness has been described to him, and now he is just beginning to kind of grasp it. And then he says, as you have thus described yourself, I wish to see you actually, your form divine or Purushottama. So this is like if somebody is describing to me, there's this wonderful chocolate concoction, and this wonderful chocolate you can get from this country, and it comes in this kind of wrapping, and it is so wonderfully kind of tasty, and just to have a bit of that is like experience of heaven. And this person is so good at describing this detail to me. What begins to happen to me? I begin to have my the water in my mouth begins to come about. My mouth starts watering because in my imagination, I am seeing this thing. It is now available to me in this kind of experience of listening to somebody. So if this person has given me such a nice detail, and I've heard this in detail, what is the next thing I want to do? I want to experience that chocolate for myself. I'm a lover of chocolate, and that's why I use this example, because all different kinds of chocolates, just to taste it and to experience it is really what I want to do. If somebody has explained to me, here's a new chocolate which has come onto the market. So in the same manner, Arjuna has listened to Bhagwan's glories, vibhutis. In the last chapter, he has given so many glories. And before that, he has explained to him what divinity is, where does it arise from, what is the ultimate reality, what is the imperishable Brahman. And all this description makes Arjuna to be very kind of keen now to actually experience this. I wish to see actually your form divine. And this is where he says to the Lord, if you think it is possible for me to see it, please, O Lord of the Yoga, Yogeshwara, show me your imperishable self-form. So Arjuna has reached a point now. Remember, he was in a state of dejection. From dejection, he has now come to so much kind of enthusiasm and this energy which is beginning to now flow itself out and say, Lord, you have shown me and told me so many things about, and I've heard it from you in detail about all these things of the divine. Now I want to see it. Let me see it. Please, if you think it's possible, let me see it. So what happens now is Bhagwan is going to show him. But just to remember what Arjuna asked in the previous chapter. He said, you yourself know yourself by yourself, O Purushottama, source of all being, Lord of all being, God of gods, ruler of the world. So he has, heard this. You should indeed, without reserve, tell me your divine glories. So Arjuna is asked about these divine glories and say, Lord, tell me all about all these divine glories by which you exist, pervading all these worlds, not only the earthly world, but also above and below. How shall I ever meditating know you, O yogin? In what aspects of things, O blessed Lord, are you to be thought of by me? So he's asking for specific things from the Lord and saying, how am I going to meditate? Tell me how I can, without reserve, show me these glories, tell me about them, and in what aspects or things I can think of you. Tell me again in detail your yoga power, your immanent glory, for I do not feel satisfied by hearing your life-giving and so nectar-like speech. In other words, Arjuna is keen, first of all, to listen to these glories. And now he is keen to do what? He wants to have the vision of the Lord himself. He wants to experience all these details Bhagwan has given him. So this is wonderful. And this is how we can see the progression. So again, as I was saying, let's keep some frameworks in mind in order to put all these jigsaw pieces into place. Bhagwan has done a marvelous, of course, Bhagwan is Bhagwan. And his kind of vision and his way of explaining cannot be surpassed because he is the ultimate. So what he tells us here is that in chapter number 10, and before, of course, he's given hints of that as well, having the vision of seeing the one reality in all the diverse objects of our experience. In other words, when I see something and I say to myself, in essence, this thing is divine. When I see a person and I say to myself, here's my friend, or here's an acquaintance, or here's my enemy, but the essence of this person is divine. Here's a creature I see, here's an animal, here's a plant, here's anything. I can discern the one reality in all these diverse objects of my experience. This is called one in all vision. And this is towards the beginning of our journey, whereby we begin to see this oneness in everything we see around us. Because remember, Bhagwan is taking Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield, where he's experiencing directly his transactional reality towards experiencing the highest and the most subtlest truths. And therefore, all these bridges have to be built for him to step onto so that he can experience that. And one of the pathways, one of the things which we have to continuously try to do is that every time we see something in front of us, remind ourselves, in essence, this is the divine. In essence, that is the divine. So one in all, chapter number 10. Then in this chapter, all in one, having the vision of diverse objects in one reality. Okay, this is again requires even a more subtler mind in order for it to perceive this one reality within which everything is contained. See, this subject-object duality is what was there in one in all kind of transaction and relationship. So as the subject-object duality begins to diminish through our sadhana, through the purification of the mind, what we begin to see is that there is one reality. And this one reality in which all these diverse objects, all these things which are going on, I can see that one reality beyond all these diverse objects. It is like seeing the screen behind the movie. If you go to the theater, something is going projected onto the screen. And all that is contained on this screen, imagine that this is one reality within which everything is contained. This great reality, which is the ultimate reality of Brahman at the highest level, and the cosmic reality of the Purusha. And this is what this chapter is all about. And beyond that, of course, is the one reality only, whereby there is nothing remaining. There is no duality. Everything kind of dissolves into and merges into that one reality which says, I am Brahman. Again, a very systematic method by which Bhagwan is taking Arjuna to the highest experience of the self. So vibhutis, we have seen all these vibhutis which I talked about in chapter number 10, and these are 72 different kinds of vibhutis which Bhagwan gives. Nothing is left out. All the categories of thinking which we have, and if you look at all these individual items, you can begin to see Bhagwan has not left out anything. He has taken each and every category in this world, in the upper world, and even in the lower world. Everything is part and parcel of this one vision. So one in all, seeing the oneness in each and every diverse object is where we began. And again, these are the ones which are given to us in the last chapter. And Bhagwan is giving each and every example to show Arjun that you can connect with the divine wherever you are, whenever you are. These are the examples. And as I was saying, that we can translate some of these things in a contemporary sense. Okay, so that when we talk about, say, for example, the hymns and the meters and the Gayatri Mantra, etc., or we look at the seasons and we look at the flowery spring, we can immediately begin to connect. And we can contemporize all these objects to tell us that each and every object in this world has got this essence of divinity within it. Okay, so going on to the next thing. Now, Krishna himself immediately says, behold. He's not waiting for anything. Arjuna has made a request and he's saying, behold, O Partha, forms of me by hundreds and thousands of different sorts of divine, of various colors and shape. And behold the Adityas, the Vasus, the Rudras, the Ashwins, the Maruts. Behold many wonders never before seen. Never before seen. Okay. And he is saying, here you are, everything is available. What you are asking for me to give you, this wonderful vision is available to here and now. In this body, see, Arjuna is looking at Krishna and he's saying, in this body, the whole universe centers in this one, including the moving, the unmoving, and whatever else you desire to see, everything is contained in this one reality. And then he realizes, you're not able to behold me with your own eyes. Okay, so just like if we are watching a three-dimensional movie, and we need to have that special glasses to see the three dimensions. Here, then Bhagwan is giving Arjuna the divine eye. The divine eye through which we can see, or he can see, this wonderful vision, this universal vision of the truth, of the divine. So Gurudev in his commentary, if you read his commentary, he says, for us the divine eye is what? He says it is the eye of discrimination. And through that discriminative power, we are able to behold, at least to start with, divinity in each and every object and thing in this world. We begin to see these things. So divine eye for us is going to be the discriminative knowledge. Now, there is a switch over. Bhagwan Vyasa now switches over to the commentary of Sanjay. And as I was saying, that Sanjay is speaking to Dhritarashtra and giving him the commentary of what is going on the battlefield. And he says, having thus spoken, O king, the great lord of yoga, Hari, showed to Partha his supreme form. So there are two things here. One is that Sanjay is telling the commentary to Dhritarashtra, but at the same time, Because Arjuna has now got the divine eye. What do you think happens to him? He becomes speechless. He can't even talk. So Sanjay is taking over on his behalf and he's saying, this is the supreme form which now Partha is seeing as the Lord of the universe, with numerous mouths and eyes, with numerous wonderful sights, with numerous divine ornaments, divine weapons, uplifted. Such a form he showed to Arjun, wearing divine garlands, apparel, anointed with divine unguents, and all the wonderful, resplendent, endless, facing all sides. So this is the description which Sanjay himself is having this vision himself, so that he can see what is going on. And he's describing this thing to Dhritarashtra, and he's taking over Arjuna's vision while he is himself beginning to absorb whatever he is saying right in front of him. And he goes on to say, if the splendor of 1,000 suns was to ablaze all at once, simultaneously in the sky, that would be like the splendor of the mighty being, great soul. So imagine in the best of our summer days, when the sun is out, imagine the light which is there. And imagine that 1,000 of these suns are there. How much kind of light would be there? Okay. So that is the kind of light which is powerfully being beheld by Arjun and also Sanjay. There in the body of gods, the Pandavas, son of Pandu, then saw the whole universe resting in one. The whole universe resting in one reality, in all its infinite parts. This one reality is available in this one, all the diverse objects in just one reality. And then Dhananjay, Arjun, filled with wonder, with his hair standing on end, bowed his head to the god and spoke with joined palms. He says, I have seen now this wonderful form, and his hair is standing on end. What is that an indication of? A tremendous emotional experience. An experience which he has never, of course, had before. So it is something which is amazingly available to him. So this is what he is now seeing, is that he is beholding this wonder. His hair is standing on end, and bowed his head, and he spoke to God. So this is a long section which Arjuna then begins to talk about what he is seeing, what his experience is, and also it gives us a glimpse as to really what Arjuna is experiencing. And it also shows us, what the kind of wonder it is. The immeasurable, infinite glories of the Lord contained within this one reality. This is what Arjuna is now going to describe. So Arjuna starts by saying, I see all gods, O God, in your body. Host of various classes of beings, Brahma, the Lord of creation, seated on the lotus, all the rishis and celestial serpents. So he's seeing Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh in one. What does that indicate? It indicates the totality of the creation is available to him in this one vision. And he says, I see boundless form on every side with manifold forms, arms, stomach, mouths, eyes, neither the end, nor the middle, nor the beginning do I see. He can't see the end, he can't see the beginning, he can't even see the middle. And he sees this boundless form containing everything on all sides, manifold forms and stomachs and mouths and everything else. And he says, I see the crown, the club, the discus, the mass of radiance shining everywhere, very hard to look at, all around blazing like the burning sun and the burning fire, incomprehensible. He's just trying to make sense of this. And he can see crown, club, and discus. This is the kind of symbolic form of Lord Vishnu, which we kind of very familiar with. And this is what Arjuna is saying. And he says, imperishable, the supreme being, worthy to be known, you are the great treasure house of this universe. You are the imperishable protector of the eternal Dharma. In my opinion, you are the ancient Purusha, Nirguna. He is describing the Nirguna aspect of the divine. Next, he goes on to say, you without beginning, middle, end, infinite in power, endless arms, the sun, moon, being your eyes, the burning mouth, your mouth, burning fire, your mouth, heating the whole universe with your radiance. Now he is describing the cosmic form, which is the Saguna form. Then he goes on to describe all this divinity which is filling up all the quarters, all the three worlds, this middle world, the higher world, and the lower world. And he says, the space between earth and heavens, all the quarters are filled by you alone. And your wonderful, terrible form, the three worlds are trembling with fear. O great soul being, the three worlds, trembling with fear. It is such a powerful vision which is having, which he himself going to start trembling, as we will see. So going on further, he says, you enter those hosts of devas, some extol you in fear with joined palms. May it be well, thus saying, bands of great rishis and siddhas praise you with hymns sublime. Wonderful. So all the rishis, siddhas, everybody is kind of praising him. And there are people who are the devas, the rishis, the siddhas, the bands, everybody is praising him with hymns sublime. The Rudras, the Adityas, the Vasus, the Sadyas, the Vishvavedas, Devas, the Gandharvas, the Yakshas, the Asuras, all these are different beings which are present there, and they are all looking at you quite astonished. Everybody is astonished because they can see this wonderful divine form. Having seen your immeasurable form, many mouths, many eyes, many arms, and this is one way of describing it, that we can see so many different things, and all of these are contained within this one reality. And all the worlds are terrified, and so too am I. Arjuna is also terrified because it is something, which he has never, of course, seen before. And it is so vast in its vision, incomprehensible. He can't even begin to comprehend what is going on. But he's beginning to describe and see some of the things which he can at least get hold of and say, yes, I'm seeing this and I'm seeing that. And he's saying now, on seeing you with your form touching the sky, flaming in all colors, mouths wide open, large fiery eyes, I'm terrified at heart, and I find neither courage nor peace, O Vishnu. So we would have thought that, this divine vision which he's going to have will bring him enormous joy, devotion. But here, what is he talking about? Terrified in my heart. And he's saying, I'm neither finding the courage nor the peace. But of course, it has got its own understanding of why this is happening. It's because Arjuna is being given this special divine eyes, and therefore implying that he himself has not got the capacity to see it at that moment. And therefore being given this eyes means that he has got this extra something which has been given to him by Bhagwan when he was not yet ready to kind of, in a strict sense, not yet ready to see this. And therefore this kind of experiences and responses begin to arise in him. So he says, I know not four quarters, nor do I find peace. So he is not able to see the end and the beginning of anything, this vastness of, the space which is there before him. And he says, I can't see any of the four quarters, nor do I find peace. This complete kind of disorientation which is taking place. Why? Because there is nothing which he can relate to. Because his, sense of this consciousness has expanded so vastly that even to locate himself in space, he says, I cannot find myself in these four quarters. This kind of disorientation is taking place. And what he's saying here, all the sons of Dhritarashtra with the host of king of the earth, Bhishma, Drona, son of charity, Kṛṣṇa, chieftain of ours, all this you can see as well. Into your mouths, terrible teeth, and fearful to behold, they precipitately enter. And some of them are sticking in the gaps between the teeth, heads crushed into pulp. What is he seeing? He's being shown something in the future. What is going to happen to the Kauravas? And this is what he's describing now. Torrents of river flow towards the ocean. So the heroes in the world of men enter your flaming mouth. Everything is going into this flaming mouth. And he can describe it in the way in which he's describing torrents of river which flow towards the ocean, just like all the rivers which flow into that one ocean. All these things, and in this case, he's describing the heroes. They are entering into the flaming mouth. And Arjuna says, as the moth rushed hurriedly into the blazing fire of their own destruction, so also these creatures hastily into your mouth of destruction. So, the kind of way in which he's describing is also according to the principles we already studied before. The principle of existence, the principle of consciousness, the principle of infinity, imperishable truth which is there, and how everything is in this phenomenal world related to this ultimate principle, the absolute principle. And this is what he's saying through his description. And he says, devouring all worlds on all sides with your flaming mouths, you are licking your fierce rays, filling the whole world with radiance and burning. Tell me who you are, so fierce in form. Salutation to you, O God Supreme. Have mercy, I desire to know you, the original being. I know not indeed your purpose. So again, his mind is kind of, in this state whereby he wants to find out who is this fierce form. Who are you really? Salutations to you. I need to know, I desire to know your original being. In other words, he wants to know where all this is coming from. So this cosmic vision is related to the creation, remember? And he wants to know what is the source of this vision which he's having. I want to know the original being. Because I know not indebted your purpose. In other words, that he is trying to find out, first of all, what is the origin? What is this creation? How can I see this wonderful creation in this one reality? And in a sense, what is the purpose of this ultimate reality descending into this creation? I also want to know that as well. So here are some of the descriptions which are, given in the scriptures. This is a very old kind of what you call sculpture, which is I think more than 2,000-3,000 years old, which is showing this vision of the divine, the universal vision. And of course, there are modern depictions, but of course they cannot capture what Arjuna is saying. These are only ways in which we can begin to visualize, all the kind of things which he's saying into that one vision of the truth. And here we can get a glimpse of, what it might have been for Arjun to see this wonderful form. So here we are. So then, of course, the Blessed Lord, in answer to his previous question, what does he say? I am the mighty world-destroying time. I am Kala, I'm time, now engaging in destroying the worlds. Even without you, none of these warriors arrayed in hostile armies shall live. Now, why I have put this in this box is because we have to start thinking, do some contemplation as to why Bhagwan has spoken like this. And what is the relationship between what he's talking about now and Arjuna's original condition and his anxieties about these people are going to be killed. Remember, Bhagwan is the master teacher, so that he is connecting all what he's teaching now to what was related before. And it is in the service of guiding Arjuna, so that he begins to see what from this just was this one verse, that none of these warriors you see before you, none of them shall live. because I am the world destroying time. Everything gets destroyed. And in that sense, the principle of creation, sustenance, and destruction is in my hands. I am the creator, the sustainer, and the destroyer of everything. So if you're worried about this person is going to die, what is going to happen, blood will be on my hands, I'm telling you now, none of these things are going to remain. They are all going to die. And then another very important point. Therefore, stand up and obtain fame. Conquer the enemies. Enjoy the flourishing kingdom. Verily by myself, they have already been slain. Prarabdha karma is unfolding for us moment to moment, even in your life and my life. And what do we have to say? Not come up with arguments. I can't do this. This is too difficult for me. This is what is bothering me. This is giving me grief. This is giving me bhaya, fear. The important thing here, conquer the enemies. Not only these enemies outside, he says, conquer those enemies within yourself and flourish. Flourish in this life, because everything has just been predetermined. You are just an instrument. And as an instrument, or left-handed archer, Sachin, he says, you just do your duty. And this is again connected to the whole guidance of the Gita, the principles on what Lord Krishna is telling us, is that if you live your life in such a way as just the instrument of the Lord, doing your dharma, doing your karma yoga in the station and stage of your life, you begin to turn towards the highest reality. Therefore, stand up and fight. For us, it's not about standing up and fighting. It's about doing our dharma, being the instrument. Chapter number 3, verse number 30 summarizes how we should live in this world, transact in the world. And he says, all these brave warriors, those have already been slain by me. You do kill. Be not be distressed with fear. Fight and you shall conquer your enemies in battle. And of course, fight in a certain way. Fight in what way? In the yajna spirit, the karma yoga way, the dharmic way, and according to the station and stage in life, according to the role we are playing, we should do that in our own life, be the instrument of the Lord, because everything is just going to flow as it is. Like Gurudev tells us, prarabdha is what you face. Purusharth is your response to whatever you face. Sadhana is our response to the unfolding karma of our life. And as much as we can respond in this kind of dharmic, spiritual way, we begin to go towards the ultimate destination of our life. Again, a wonderful kind of description by Bhagwan here. So then again, back to Sanjay, he says, having heard that speech of Keshava Krishna, Arjuna, with joined palms, trembling and prostrating himself again and again, addressed Krishna in a choked voice, bowing down, overwhelmed with fear. Now he has kind of at least grasped somewhere what Bhagwan is himself. And he says, it is but fitting, O Rishikesh, the world delights and rejoices in thy praise. Rakshasas fly in fear to all quarters, and all hosts of Siddhas bow to thee. So, and why should they not? He says, the primal cause even of Brahma, infinite being, or lords of the lords, the abode of the universe, you are imperishable. And that which is beyond both the manifest and the unmanifest. So see how Arjuna is also beginning to glimpse the ultimate reality from all this creation which has come about, and he sees not only the imperishable, but he's also seeing the manifest, and he's saying, no wonder, these Rakshasas are flying in fear in all directions, and all the Siddhas are bowing down to thee. And further on, this is now really the all-in-one experience, and you are the primal God, the ancient Purusha, supreme refuge of this universe, knower, the knowable, the abode supreme, the universe pervading infinite forms contained in this one reality, all in one, having the vision of diverse objects in this one reality. Your Vayu, Yama, Agni, Varuna, think of whatever you can. The great grandfather of all. Salutations, 1,000 times salutations, and again salutations unto you. This is what comes out. This is why he has to salute again and again, because he can see this wonderful transcendental reality, the created reality, his kind of vision of this whole thing. And he says, salutation to you 1,000 times. And salutation to you before and behind, salutation to you on every side, on all sides, infinite in power, infinite in prowess, pervading all, wherefore you are the all. Whatever I have rashly said. Now see how the kind of thought process changes. And of course, we know that Lord Krishna and Arjuna were great friends. And, and he says, whatever I rashly said carelessly or with from carelessness or love, addressing you as, O Krishna, O Yadav, O friend, regarding you merely as a friend, unknowing of this greatness of yours, he says, in whatever way I have insulted you for the sake of fun, while play, reposing, whatever, he says, I implore you to forgive. What do you think is the lesson for us here? Think about it. Contemplate. That's the exercise for you. Another exercise to contemplate on what this means. Very important message here. Forgiveness. Okay. So, continuing further, he says, you are the father of this world, moving and unmoving. You are to be adored by this world. You are the greatest guru. For there exists none who is equal to you. How can there be then another superior to you in these three worlds, or being of unequal power? He's now kind of putting things into, their order and this place. Therefore, bowing down, prostrating my body, I crave your forgiveness. Adorable Lord, as a father forgiveth his son, a friend his friend, a lover his beloved, even so you should forgive me, O Deva. So imagine the kind of emotions which Arjuna is going through. Imagine that, this Krishna, who he used to call his friend, and not knowing the reality of Krishna, he says, I may have said things and done things, please forgive me. And I crave for your forgiveness, adorable Lord. And just like father to the son, friend to a friend, lover to beloved, you should also forgive me. So remember this forgiveness. I think, forgiveness not only to the world around us, but forgiveness for ourselves. And what effect it has. And I've seen this many times when I'm in some of my counseling sessions, is that when that moment comes, when that sense of forgiveness comes of somebody who has done harm to this person, it is a moment full of intense emotion. And it kind of removes this huge obstacle which is there, through which one cannot have a relationship with anybody. That begins to dissolve. And imagine what it can do for us. Even just simply using some of these principles can make a lot of difference to us. So going further, he says, I am delighted, having seen what you was never seen before, yet my mind is distressed with fear. Go back to your previous form. Show me your previous form only, O God. Have mercy, O God of gods, abode of the universe. He says, yeah, thank you very much. I've seen, and it is really kind of, taken hold of me. My consciousness, my thoughts, my feelings, even my body, I don't know where it is located. I desire to see you as before, crowned, bearing a mace with discus in hand. He wants to see this classical form of Vishnu and having 4 arms, 1,000 arms, or universal form. So let me see something which I can manage with my mind. Okay, so this is his plea. And again, to remind ourselves, this is the kind of pathway which is being followed in chapter number 10, 11, and going further. In the next chapter, Bhagwan brings all these elements together, which is the final kind of chapter on the divine, the discourse on the divine. And then, of course, we go to the next part, the last section of the Bhagavad Gita, which is about the relationship between the Jiva and Ishvara, between the individual and the totality. And that starts off with a wonderful chapter, number 13, of the Kshetra and Kshetrajna, which we'll come to later. So one in all in one, and then one reality. This is a pathway which we need to follow. And wherever we are, we have to kind of focus our attention, our sadhana on that part. So the Blessed Lord says, graciously by me, O Arjuna, this supreme form has been shown to you by my own yoga power. And this I which he gave him, the divine I, was only through Lord's yoga power. And he says, full of splendor, primeval, infinite, this universal form of mine has never been seen by any other than yourself. Never seen by any other than yourself in the stage at which you are, wherever you have reached in your understanding and in your journey. Nobody has seen this kind of thing. So, indeed, Arjuna is very fortunate to have seen this vision of the Lord. Neither by study of the Vedas and sacrifices, nor by ritual, nor by severe austerity can I be seen in this form in the world of men, by any other than yourself, O great hero. So even if we do all these things which Bhagwan is talking about here, we are not going to be able to see this form. In the world of men, it is not available to us. Be not afraid, nor be bewildered on seeing this terrible form of mine. With your fear dispelled, with a gladdened heart, now I behold this form of mine which you are telling me to revert to. So Bhagwan is now reverting back to his form which Arjuna has asked for. So again, back to Sanjay. And Sanjay, he says, having thus spoken, Vasudev again showed his own form, and the great soul one, assuming his gentle form, consoled him who was terrified. See how compassionate Bhagwan is. Arjuna asked to be shown this universal vision, Viśvarūpa. He gives it to him. Arjuna says, thank you very much. I've seen, I'm terrified. Show me this gentle form again. Here the Lord is showing him the gentle form. Always, ever in the service of the devotee. Walk one step towards the divine, he will walk 100 steps towards us. This is what the masters are telling us. And then Arjuna says, having thus seen this, thy gentle form, O Janardana, I am now composed and restored to my own nature. So his anxiety has come down and he's feeling now restored to his own nature. And he says, the Lord says, very hard indeed it is to see this form of mine, which you have seen. Even the gods are longing to behold this form. Imagine that, he is telling Arjuna how fortunate he is. Of course, it's only because of the special divine eye. He says even the gods want to see this form. Not many people have seen it. Arjuna is the only one, he says, who has seen this form. So very hard to see. But Bhagwan is going to tell us really how can we see this Vishvadarshan. And neither by the Vedas, nor by austerities, nor by gift, nor by sacrifice can I be seen in this form as you have seen me in your present mental condition. Remember that Arjuna has reached a certain state of understanding, a certain state of purity. Bhagwan has given a special dispensation for him to see this wonderful universal vision. And then, of course, he comes back down to this form. And as he has seen is, none of this can be seen by any of these activities or sadhanas which he's mentioning, but by single-minded devotion can I of this form be known and seen in reality, and also entered into, O Parantapa, scorcher of your foes. So there you are. There is a solution. If we want to have the divine eye of ourselves, discrimination, devotion. Single-minded means discrimination, devotion. With that devotion, can we also see this form? And therefore he says, he who does actions for me, transactionally, this is also another guidance he's giving, who looks upon me as the supreme. Again, he has said this to Arjuna before. Look at me as the ultimate goal, supreme goal. See this as the supreme means, which means there is no other goal. There is no other goal in life except to attain this supreme and completely devoted to me, devoted to this supreme self, free from attachment. In other words, there is nothing which is attaching me to this world of names and forms. My vision is completely directed towards the divine. I am looking upon the Lord as the supreme, and I am free from attachments of all kinds, devoted to the Lord, bearing no enmity towards anybody. Again, contemplate why he has brought this particular thing here. And enmity means that there is some kind of dualistic subject-object relationship in a certain kind of distorted way. And there is a significance here as well, in the sense that enmity can only arise where I see the difference. And where that difference is making me to feel, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, the ego identity. So therefore, what this means, drop your ego. Let go of your ego identity completely. It is only then that you cannot feel enmity towards anybody. And therefore, somebody who looks upon me as supreme, devoted to me, free of attachment, without me or mine. Me is this enmity. No ego attachment. Focus only the supreme. And life lived only for the supreme. He comes to me. So this is what Lord Krishna has given Arjuna. And this is his divine vision. And this is how we ourselves can begin to move towards beholding that all-in-one vision. And I'm sure it is possible. Good. So that brings us to the end of the chapter. But again, to remind ourselves of the conscious principles of spiritual living. How is this going to be done? The 4 A's of conscious living: awareness, alertness, attention, action. The 4 B's of learning about yourself and letting go of the ego self. Background, beliefs, behavior, backwash. 4 C's of commitment to a seeker's life: clarity, comprehension, conviction, commitment. I mentioned this in this talk as well, that clarity, comprehension is important to have, so that the delusion goes, just like Arjuna's delusion has gone and is full of conviction. And the 4 D's of it, attitudes of a sadhana, and abhyas, determination, devotion, dedication, discipline. So what are we going to do? Here's some homework for the coming month. Ensure that you understand the logic of one in all and all in one, manifestations of the divine, and your own experience of these dimensions of the divine. See how you are getting on by seeing the divine in each and every thing around you. Reflect on your own sadhana. Consider how you may enhance seeing the divine in all aspects in your day-to-day life. And then again, practice consciously bringing the consciousness of the divine in each and every object, person, situation, every moment in your daily practice of living through the Gita. Now begin to capture the idea of experiencing, of seeing everything in this one reality. Go one step further and see if you can see this, behold this oneness within which all this is contained. Even for the time being, it's in our imagination. Even then, it can be so wonderful to have. Continue to practice all the other techniques which we have talked about in the previous chapters. Prepare and execute a daily plan, which is also very important. Meditation every day, 10, 15, 20 minutes, however much you can afford to spend time, but make sure that there is a plan of meditation every day. And then enjoy the sadhana, stay safe, stay well. And we know that we are under another lockdown. So stay safe while we wait for the vaccine and things to get better. Meanwhile, sadhana cannot stop. Continue with all your sadhana. Thank you very much, and Hari Om. So we will close with the prayers. Jai Shri.
Yes. Thank you, Ramesh. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Natatra Suryo Bhati Na Chandra Tarakam Nema Vidyuto Bhanti Kuto Yamagnihi Tameva Bhantamanubhati Sarvam Tasya Bhasa Sarvamidam Vibhati Bole Shri Satgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai.